Welcome, beautiful Paris Saint-Germain family. Yesterday, we beat the ass of that dirty AC Milan side. They were diving, they were fouling, but they couldn't. They couldn't outmatch us talent-wise in that game. And in this huge video, I'll be talking about the game from a tactical sense and from an eye test sense. Because first of all, we will be discussing this with an absolute Paris Saint-Germain beautiful guest. Junior Nkana Basi. Was my pronunciation right?
Yeah, you got it spot on right there, mate.
And as usual, we will also digest the game tactically, where I'll be showing, obviously, slides and pictures of the game, what Paris Saint-Germain were good at, what we can improve, and just how the game went. This is a long video. Hopefully enjoy it so I can know if I can make more kind of videos like this. So let's jump straight into this.
Yeah.
So,
pleasure to be here.
Pleasure having you here. So tell us about yourself. Why did you choose to support this club? Why? Well,
Yeah, so it might not sound it, but I am French. So I was born in France, just outside of Paris, or just southeast of Paris. But by the accent, I moved to Canada when I was young. So I moved there when I was like
okay.
3 years old, and so I lived there for most of my life. Spent like 15, yeah, 12 years there. So that's where obviously the accent comes from. And so obviously being French Canadian and whatnot, and growing up in a not massive, city where I'm from Manitoba, and growing up watching while watching football, I need to have a team, and I guess perhaps I'm assuming that most of your audience probably, if it's North American, it's that you don't have necessarily a local team you can really support,
Yeah.
or familial ties and so on and so forth. And so, as many people in North America do, you support one of the big teams, your United's, Real Madrid's, Barca, so on and so forth. And so for me, I was French. I was born just outside of Paris. I wanted a team that I could watch semi-regularly, week in, week out. So back in Canada at that time, Champions League games were televised on what we have over TSN, is the big major sporting channel. And so, I go on when I'd come back from school on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I see, oh, who's this French team? Paris, blue and red seems interesting. And this was been like 2013. This was like, I remember the kit. It was Zlatan was there, number 10, with the like, it was sort of almost like the last year's kit, but the big white one.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
time,
yeah.
yeah, I remember that tie. It was like when we were playing like Chelsea back to back in the Champions League. That time was like, okay, now I guess PSG's my team now. And so obviously at first it wasn't like I wasn't watching games week in, week out and whatnot. And also back at that point I was more so, I guess, a like many young fans, more so following players. So like I liked Barca if you want, but it's more so I like Messi and whatnot. But as I've gone on now and I've watched more PSG games, I've learned about the history. You've gone through the highs and the lows of being a PSG fan. I guess that's how it's developed. And today I'm proud to call myself a Parisian, not only in, I guess, in birth, but also as a fan.
So did you, being from Paris, have a correlation with you supporting the club?
I definitely, like, I'd say so. Yeah, definitely. So like, it's not like I just chose it out of thin air. It's like, well, I'm born in Paris. French is, I guess, it's a part of my identity. So, it's always been something like that, and so it's always something, an added bonus. But I'd say mostly the biggest thing for me was more so that it was a French club, and it's especially during that, like, the 2000, we'll say, like, yeah, 2000s to 2015, that time. PSG
Yeah.
was the only, I guess, even still today, really, PSG is the only real big, if you want, quotation marks, French club that people, pay serious attention to. And so, yeah, because if I supported, like, let's take Lens, for example, who are doing decently right now, people wouldn't really care. So, to be also part of the discussion. Also, obviously, it's also Paris, so that's an added effect. But I'd say more so was the
Yeah.
fact that it was a French team, and the fact that it's Paris is like an added bonus onto that. Yeah.
All right, all right. Great introduction of you choosing this club. So, yesterday, big game. What was, first of all, how did you go into the game? What was your expectations? What was your prediction?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna say I was nervous going into the game, but not like nervous like crap, like we're gonna get like I'll say not like last year. Like last year when we faced Bayern, both times I was like nervous as like we could get smacked here. All right.
Yeah.
But this time was more so of a nervous like when you feel like there's a big game. I was going into PSG were expected to win. PSG weren't in great form. I feel like this season, We've seen glimpses of like the PSG to be, but we've been sort of, if you want, yo-yo. You win one week, we go and smack Marseille. The other week, we lose at home. This, that, and the other. So we've been a bit up and down. And so it was more so, okay, what PSG is going to turn out. We beat Strasbourg over the weekend, but again, no disrespect to Strasbourg or anything. It's Strasbourg and it's the league.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how would the team respond to the calamity that was Newcastle, and would they show a new face. And so I was cautiously nervous, but yeah, with everything that happened afterwards, I think they certainly proved the doubts wrong, and it's a great performance what we saw yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, I saw what you said. You were saying, yeah, where's the 4-1 now?
Yeah, like,
where's the
that's
4-1?
what he's saying. So like, bro, I don't like it. It's a funny statement, but hey, Rome wasn't built in a day. Let Lucho cook. All right, PSG. That's one thing that I will say. I don't know. Being a PSG fan, I guess in being an English PSG fan, I feel like it's different in that because so I live in London, in the UK here and whatnot. So PSG, on the minds of most people here, people don't pay attention to it until it comes to Europe, right? Or if PSG get like walloped in the league. All right. Other than that, people don't care about PSG. People don't look at PSG inside and out. And so,
Thanks.
yeah, I feel like, I mean, this could be just bias or whatnot and whatnot, but I feel like PSG, arguably on the European stage, one of the, I guess, at least most clowned upon clubs. People really don't like the fact that PSG, this I guess nouveau riche club. PSG has gotten a lot of its success recently. Now, obviously, to these people too, PSG had history before, the Qatari takeover, which is not just, we're not like a Man City who had nothing or very little or just nothing before then. All right, we were winning European Cups back in the day too. And so for a lot of these people, because they don't watch PSG week in, week out, they sort of just like, oh, whenever they don't do well in the Champions League, well, and you count on them, and then when they do well, it's like, oh well, of course you're doing well. It's
Exactly.
yeah. So there's that, and the way I said it last year, I guess it doesn't really apply now anymore. I compared PSG it's sort of a mix of Bayern and of Man City. Not so much Man City anymore because they won the Champions League, but they were like Bayern because every single season in the league they're expected to win. Right? If they win the league, you don't look. It's like, of course you win the league. Farmers League this, Farmers League that. All right. When you don't win the league, whoa, what's going on? You guys are trash. You can't even win in the league. But then they also like City before, and that they are a nouveau riche club, and they hadn't won the Champions League. So I guess you could criticize his Bayern that you steamroll over the league all the time, so on and so forth. But they have five Champions League to boot, right? Which is fair. And Man City, again, you can say the same thing. The one difference with them, though, is that you say they play in England. Now, I think I'll put into question some of this idea that Ligue 1's Farmers League and whatnot. Ligue 1, I think since 2016, both PSG and Man City have the same amount of leagues. If you look at like other things, in terms of like difference between the best team and the worst team, like Ligue 1 is a lot more competitive than people. In fact, I saw a study, this article done a couple of years ago, which looked at over the last decade, I think from 2019 to like 2010 and whatnot. If you look at a bunch of different metrics, like the variation of the top six, the percentage that the league, like the winners win and everything, Ligue 1 was actually found to be the most competitive of the top 5 leagues. And you say that to like some common person, it's like, that absolutely no way. Yeah. But it's because like PSG, it constantly get the league constantly gets clowned on. But like if I take for example the Premier League, outside of like last season when the top 6 doesn't really change, right? So last season was an anomaly where you had Newcastle who made it in, you had Brighton who made it in, but every other season you expect Man City, Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, all of them to be in the top 6. Now, the order of which obviously can change and whatnot, but you expect those teams. Whereas in Ligue 1, like you have Clermont, who were just promoted last year, getting mid-table. Lens, who a couple of years were battling relegation, now finishing second. You got Lyon, the historic big clubs now who are struggling. So there's a lot more variation, and there's this common notion that, and the Premier League, anybody can beat anybody. Well, if you look at Ligue 1, that's even more so the case. But it's because people don't pay attention to it that it sort of goes under the radar a bit. Yeah. And so yeah, with everything, with that, going back to the game or whatnot, I think now having gone back to the game, I think I'm more calm. I'm not saying we're going to go win the Champions League or whatnot, but it certainly quenches a lot of the doubts that were there. I think even from the get go, PSG are definitely the strongest in the group. I think even like I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate, but I think that the Newcastle game, for as bad as it was, I think even I will agree with Enrique that the score flattered Newcastle quite a bit. Like if you look at the first 30 minutes, PSG, bar from the goal, weren't playing terribly. There was a lot of bad things that happened, I will say, but as like even Eddie Howe said, that 4-1 flatters a Newcastle quite a bit. There's the handball that I guess you could argue that shouldn't have been called, and then there's their last free goal who the guy's slipping and it goes top bins, that stuff, like you can't really do much. So when you look at it from that viewpoint, this is not to go and say that PSG should have won the game or anything, but you have to put things, I think, into perspective. And so I think that throughout the 3 games, I think PSG has been the best team in the group and is shown by the fact that PSG is currently first in the table.
Yeah, and our recent victory versus Milan, I believe, is the most impressive victory out of any Champions League game so far this season.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
No team has had that impressive win over another great team. I mean, Real barely beat Napoli, Bayern barely beat United.
Yeah, and the thing I will say too, though, is now all of a sudden, when PSG go and beat Milan like this, and Milan weren't good. Milan were this was that. So like it's the same thing I said with Arsenal and whatnot. When Arsenal lost to Lens, it's Arsenal finished Lens finished second in the league, right behind PSG. The PSG of Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe. All right, but when PSG beat them last year and beat them just a couple weeks ago, right before Arsenal played them, whack, Farmers this, Farmers that. So it's like, if you're gonna be consistent, if they're Farmers then, they're Farmers now, or if they're a good team then, they were a good team when PSG played them. You can't have it both ways.
They always do that. When we lose a Champions League game, it's oh my god, the opposition was so good, and when we win, it's the opposition was so bad. I mean, you expected PSG to beat Milan.
Exactly. I think it was fair. I did connect to the poll. A lot of people initially, it's fairly even, but a lot of people said had PSG, Milan going and winning through. Also, one thing I was gonna say, I always like before the game, I said I thought it was gonna be a close game because I thought Milan, Italian team, think Catenaccio, good defense and whatnot. So I was saying that a PSG win, but by like a 1-goal margin. So I was gonna say like a 1-0 or a 2-1. So a 3-0, really like it's a convincing scoreline. And obviously you also have the Dembele goal, which was obviously rightfully called off for the foul. But like it was, PSG certainly did I think dominate most of the game. So yeah, I think it's a fair result.
Who was your man of the match?
For me, there's no question. Warren Zaïre-Emery. I'm telling you, listen. Wow, for me, give this guy a couple years, PSG captain. All right, this guy will be a club legend by the age of 26. This guy has everything. Like I said it in a short in the video that I uploaded a while recently. I think that he will be in the French Euro 2024 squad.
For sure.
Like Didier Deschamps was at the game. He said before in the last call up that he was close, that he wasn't quite sure. This guy's 17. This guy hasn't finished high school yet, and he's like last year was starting a round of 16 game at home against Bayern Munich. At 16, he just turned. I think on that day, it was the day right after his birthday. So a newly 17-year-old is doing stuff like that. And again, like I don't want to I'm gonna call it a PSG glazer here, but like, because it's PSG, people don't mention him. Like outside the PSG or French community, I don't think you rarely hear people talking about Zaïre-Emery. But Pedri, Gavi, all these people at other clubs, right? They get the recognition that they deserve. But Warren Zaïre-Emery, because it's a PSG, no one cares about that.
Nobody cares.
So yeah, for me, Warren Zaïre-Emery masterclass. 2 assists. That first one, this guy, it's for me, it's the when you look at him play from afar, he doesn't seem like he's not like a Neymar who's going to dazzle you with his dribbling, or Mbappe who's got pace to burn and whatnot. He's like, he does everything simply, but he does it just very well. Like he doesn't put a wrong foot in. He's very, very, very strong. Like the amount of times on that Mbappe first goal for the assist, rolls the Milan midfielder twice, tries to get him, tries to foul him, tries to get a tactical foul. It doesn't work. Stays up, plays the ball, and just great for me. Easily man of the match for me.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a Rangers, being 5 years older than Warren and getting bodied that easily, I would retire. What's the point of playing football?
Like this guy's
Theo
like
Hernandez got bodied. Giroud got bodied.
yeah, exactly. Like I think I heard this on somebody on French media and whatnot saying like this. You got a 17-year-old who's bodying like these guys are like some of those like Milan players are like fathers. Or they have their own children. Or he's bodying like fathers out there. Like that's for me. Like as you said, yeah, for me that's disrespectful, mate. But yeah, class act from him though.
And the thing I love about him is after the Newcastle game, he was for me the only PSG player that I was happy with. That actually put in a performance. So
that's the thing too. So like it's also the fact that like it's not just one thing. He in the previous game he was the best player, and the fact that also the Newcastle game you'd expect in a moment like that's where you'd expect your Mbappe's your more experienced Marquinhos's to be like okay relax let's go to be the best players, but no, it's the 17-year-old who goes and gives like he obviously didn't like blow everything away and whatnot, but he's the only one who's doing things in the midfield, basically all alone there with him and Ugarte that game. Beautiful pass for the who was it Lucas Hernandez goal. So he like honestly it's slowly and surely. I think he's going to be a generational talent for PSG, not only for PSG but for world football overall.
yeah, he will 100% be the best talent that's come out from this academy, and
100%.
I mean he's about to extend as well. So
Yeah,
we're not worried. We're not worried.
Not worried. Yeah, people, coming saying. I think I heard on TNT with Julien Laurent talking about one of the other presenters was like, oh yeah, wait when the Real Madrid contract comes knocking on. But the thing I like about him too is that you see like his passion for the club, and that's I think a lot of the things that us PSG fans are like. Yes, there's these players we had big players, Sergio Ramos, Messi, Neymar, so all these things. But what PSG want is people who. In French, we say "qui mouille le maillot." They defend like they wear the shirt with pride.
Yeah.
And you see Warren Zaïre-Emery going after the game, taking the megaphone, singing with the fans. This guy is Parisian born and bred, thick and thin. He said, I think in an interview I saw a while ago that he'd like to, end his career at PSG. That's the type of language that you like to see, and especially being a local lad, an academy lad. It's something else, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all about getting them young because I mean Verratti's not Parisian, but he pretty much acts as a Parisian. He wanted to retire here. Marquinhos the same. It's more when you buy like a player when they're 26, when they've gone through that youngster, when they love another club more than you. It's very hard to get that attachment to them. But yeah, Warren definitely has to be. I mean, he's the golden child of the PSG fan base at the moment, and probably the favorite player of many PSG support. Where would you rank him as a favorite player? Alongside the other players in this squad.
For me, obviously Mbappe is like I feel like it's separate because this guy's arguably one of the best players in the world. But for me, this season, I think if you have to rank him, I think people who've impressed me is people like Ugarte that's another who like just I like to call him El Pitbull. Like this guy is everywhere on the pitch. But for me, Warren Zaïre-Emery, the fact that all these different factors, like I think like you ask any Parisian and whatnot. They'll say easily. Yeah. So I think for me, probably like in terms of right now, current out of the moment, last couple of games or whatnot, Warren Zaïre for me has been him. He's my favorite player and whatnot, and especially what's going to come in the future for him. Yeah, for me, favorite PSG player at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, in his recent 3 games he's played, obviously he didn't play against Strasbourg. He has 4 assists in his 3 games.
There you go.
And he came into this AC Milan game with a knock, missing the Strasbourg game, not training with the first team, and putting up this man of the match performance. So
exactly, man. Like that. Like and the thing is, last year that's another thing. Like the fact that like last year, I think one of if you want of the criticisms, if you want people had was like, oh, can you add that? The creative spark to his game. Can you go? Because he's very like some games last year you see him. He's very trying to as a young player would do. You're coming into you have Neymar and Mbappe, all these players. You want to be like safe. You don't want to risk things too much. So you often play square. Safe balls, not to be too adventurous and whatnot. And the thing is, the difference between him, even just like last season and this season, like you look at for the 2 goals, making bombing rings forward, going, taking shots, not being afraid of anything, like and adding that creative element to this game. That assist against Newcastle, and another assist I remember for Hakimi's goal, I guess against Rennes, like just things like that. Adding that dimensionality to his game is just he's phenomenal.
if you had to bet on a team to win the Champions League, what team would you bet on? No
I think,
biasing.
yeah, well, okay, if even I'll be honest, yeah, I think even despite how good PSG, I don't think PSG are in that top caliber. I think for me, you've got three. You've got Real because it's Real Madrid. I think even though I don't particularly like them and whatnot after some of the PSG, I have to respect the institution that is Real Madrid. For me, it's Real, Bayern, 'cause again Bayern and City. I think are the top three. City, even though like I feel City always start their seasons slow, but they're like a steam train. Once they get going, they're very hard to stop. So for me, there's that top three if you want in your S class, and then below them, that's where I have PSG, Barca, where
Inter.
you're like Inter, those types of teams in below. But all the things again with the Champions League, it's hard to tell because like let's say for example next season if we had a draw like last season for example where you had Milan, Inter, who else? Benfica. All these teams on that one side of the bracket, and all the, I guess, if you want heavyweights of Europe on
Yeah.
the other side. I mean, if like PSG find themselves in something like that and make it to a final or something, or any other team, well, then things flip very, very easily. So it's very hard to tell, and I also don't want to get too, especially for PSG, not get too like bring calm things down because I remember last season, although I think it's a completely different circumstance and whatnot. Last season, like flying through undefeated, scoring, smacking people left, right, and center. Neymar was there, Messi was there, and Mbappe was there. Everything was good. So stay calm. PSG have this uncanny thing to do. Everything's going well, and then February, March, that's when you go and the tests really start to come, and champions are truly defined in that period. And so we'll
Yeah,
see,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
I'll be cautiously optimistic. Obviously, as a supporter, you got to bet on your team and whatnot. But certainly this season, especially what's happened over the last two seasons, I'll be a little more reserved and take things one game at a time. And I think that's the opinion that or a lot of PSG fans have so far. So we take obviously this is not to say also because there's also some like non-PSG. Oh yeah, look at this and then we'll wait for the round of 16. It's like, well, football is a game of moments, right? So if you're doing well in the moment, you can say that you're doing well, and then when you're not going to be doing well, if you don't do well
Yeah.
later on, then you can say you're not doing well. So I think it's also important to celebrate your victories, but also be able to recognize when you're not doing well.
Yeah, but what would you say is lacking from PSG to not be in that S tier with the City, Bayern, and Real?
I think
Is it experience? Is it that we've not done well to pass round of 16 exits
yeah,
compared
I
to what they
think
did?
yeah, I think because I don't know, people often use this winning mentality type thing, and it's like I mean, in a way, I understand it. But like you look at PSG, Mbappe has a World Cup, Dembele has won a World Cup. You've got Coleman who's been to a World Cup final, so it's not like they don't know what winning is, right? Um, what I think is, I guess, one of the big things is perhaps the inexperience. So for as good as Warren Zaïre-Emery is, he is also 17 years old. So like if he goes and doesn't put a 10 out of 10 performance in a Champions League semifinal and is a bit under par, you can't, if you want, blame him for something like that. And even you look at the rest of our midfield, you've got Ugarte, who I believe is 22. You've got Vitinha, who's 23, 24. So we've got a very, very young midfield, and I think that's potentially where things could, be a bit, dicey. And like that's where I think a lot of PSG players wanted or fans wanted to bring another like more experienced body into that midfield. I know at the
Yeah.
beginning of the transfer window, a lot of people said Bernardo Silva was one of those options and whatnot. They got
Or
Kane.
even keeping Verratti.
Yeah, or yeah, even keeping Friday. There you go. So that's why I personally like didn't want him to leave. It's unfortunate, club legend and everything. I think he would have done like as even a lot of PSG fans would like imagine like Verratti not having to be burdened with like doing all these defensive capabilities, could purely focus on doing what Verratti does best, playing those long balls, beating the press, doing all these things. So I think that could have done us well. I think our midfield is probably our weakest point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's it. I think like our fullbacks are great. We've got Lucas Hernandez, who I guess is probably more of a center back. But then when Nuno Mendes comes back from injury, we've got like some of the best, fullbacks in the world. We've got Ashraf Hakimi on the other side, arguably one of, if not the best right back. And then maybe again defense center backs. Marquinhos has been doing a lot better. I'm not gonna say I think Milan Skriniar has left a bit to be desired. But again, like again yesterday, clean sheet. So I I think my main concern for PSG is the midfield, and also I'll say is the front three cohesion. Like, I can't say, like, for example, at the Newcastle game, for me the thing that I think was most disappointing is that the defense, although we did concede 4 goals and whatnot, again, mitigating circumstance, I think it flatters Newcastle a bit. I thought like the front three overall was just poor. Every single one of them. Nobody could, come off. Maybe, Dembele a bit, and I thought like arguably the best player who of the front players was probably Barcola when he came on. Showed some dynamism, did some stuff. So I want to like make sure that that front three works cohesively, and if that means benching, for example, a Kolomwani or Dembele for a Kangin Lee to put in Asensio or whatnot, even though it might not be a fan favorite or not, football is about winning first and foremost. So yeah.
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree with you that the midfield it's unexperienced and hasn't really played that much with each other, but especially when you compare it to City's midfield, for example, and yeah, the attack. I mean, it's new players, so it's gonna take time for them to improve and so on. What do you think we need to buy someone in January?
I think we've got enough going forwards. We've got
for sure.
Just off the top of my head, we've got Mbappe, you got Colomwani, you got Dembele, you've got Barcola, you've got Kangin Lee who can go play on the wing. You got Asensio who's currently injured. I don't know if I mentioned Gonzalo Ramos. So you got plenty of attacking threat. So now it's just figuring out what's the best. Again, I think it's in the midfield. Now the only issue is who do you replace him with, and like are there any available midfields on the market as we speak? And so I'd like to have, because the issue, my biggest concern is if, God forbid, Warren Zaïre-Emery takes a knock. Like, I think even we saw a couple of games before, like PSG at some point, a couple of games we say were a bit Ugarte dependent. Like the stuff he does off the ball, the running, the hassling, the pressing, and everything is like indispensable to PSG. So even when he wasn't, around, so you don't want to have that, I guess. And when you look at who you have on the bench, maybe Ugarte, you can say, you've got Fabian Ruiz who can replace him. But then for Zaïre-Emery, like, no disrespect to Soler or anything, but I think it's a bit of a downgrade. And even speaking of Soler, probably his best game under PSG was over the weekend against Strasbourg, where he wasn't playing as a midfielder. So I think we need to get I think probably some
just as backups.
Yeah, just as backup to have somebody there, and also just to also create some some good competition. So to speak. So like,
the only real competition both Fabian and Warren have is Fabian, and I mean, he will never be better than them. He will never take a sparking spot from them. So obviously, one player PSG are looking at is Youssouf Fofana from AS Monaco.
Yeah,
French. I mean, he would definitely be competition for them. Same age category as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's 100%. There's also a player from I can't remember, Mönchengladbach, who's also French. I can't remember his name. Yeah, there you go. Kone as well. Like somebody like that. And also that's another thing. Like I don't want to go and say like in the PSG circle, certainly among the French PSG circle, there's this they want a project Ile-de-France, so they want to bring in a lot of more French players. I also want players, players who will go be the best for the team and who will, respect the badge, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like I'm also not on the camp of like you have to be French to be able to love the club. Like you take some of PSG's greatest players like Rai undoubtedly, loved like PSG and whatnot, and he wasn't French. Like things like that can develop.
I mean, our biggest legends are not even French. Exactly. Pauletta, Susic, Rai, Mustafa Dahleb. From recent time, the Thiago Silva, the Verratti, the Ibra, the Thiago Motta, the Maxwell. I mean, there's nobody French. So I understand them wanting to create big PSG legends like we have with Kylian Mbappe, like a bit with Matuidi and Mamadou Sakho. But yeah, our priority when we look for a signing should not be, he's French.
Exactly.
No, it should be, is he good? Will his ability help the team and so on? It should not be the priority.
Exactly, 100%. Even with a player like Mbappe, for example, Mbappe, like growing up, was he's not a PSG fan. Like, I mean, if you look at, I mean, I don't think he didn't not like PSG. He was undoubtedly, if you look at his bedroom or his Real Madrid, it was, I think he said he liked, there's an
AC Milan.
yeah, AC Milan. He'd wear AC Milan kits and whatnot. So he wasn't a PSG supporter. Obviously, he's from Paris and whatnot. So I'm assuming like if PSG are in a final one, you want PSG to do well. But even him, it's like he's gone at the club slowly and surely. He's built a connection with the fans, and now you can see like even though at times he may piss me off and whatnot, I think undoubtedly like he does truly love the club and everything. And so stuff like that, the wanting to defend the badge, that the love they have for the club is built up over time. Like a Verratti, a Marquinhos. Yeah, again, as you said, these players aren't French but are PSG legends without a shadow of a doubt.
100%, 100%. But I mean, the thing I would say the main difference between PSG this season, transfer wise compared to before, is that we're buying players before their prime instead of in their prime and in their decline. Idrissa Gueye, Ander Herrera, these are good for 1-2 seasons. They will come, they will be good, but then they will drop off, and they have high wages as well. Whilst now we have an entirely young core. Hakimi young, Dona young, everybody's young in this team. So, and I believe that will make them love the club more, because it's like a bunch of friends, a classroom. You have them all pretty much in the same age category, so they can build chemistry better and so on. And that's the team at the moment. Everybody's new, and everybody has to integrate with each other instead of by himself or goes to the Spanish camp, to the French camp. We don't really have camps this season. I mean, obviously, there is Mbappe and the gang, but I think everybody is still with everybody else at the same time.
Exactly, yeah, 100% agree. I think like this, I mean, for all the people watching this eventually, like this is not, Messi's my favorite player, but like if you look at Messi, for example, when he comes to PSG, if you want to argue, he doesn't really have much to prove, like, and he doesn't like love the club. And I'm not saying like at some points like that, eventually you're a professional footballer, so whether you love the club, you'll die for the badge and whatnot. At the end of the day, you're there to do a job, but having that love for the club, if you are a Zaïre-Emery, for example, and there's like a 50-50 and whatnot, and you need to go and you do that, maybe you do go and, go in really hard. Whereas if you're Messi, you back off a bit because you're like, well, I don't want to get injured, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think going with younger players who have something to prove, or players who aren't big mega superstars who will go, and in this case exactly, nobody is bigger than the club and whatnot, is really useful and will be like imperative. So like if you take City, for example, even like Holland and whatnot, like in that team, you don't think of like a mega superstar. I guess maybe Holland's starting to become that and whatnot, but even him, like you see, like Pep is that guy. He's the main guy there at City. Over like the last couple winners, bar perhaps when Real Madrid last won it in 2018, there hasn't been like your big mega superstar on that team. So I think perhaps that is what modern football is taking it to, that you can't go and just have one player and have just that one individual difference maker. Football's obviously a collective sport, and so having a collective cohesive unit that works properly, I think potentially maybe the thing that goes and takes PSG to that next level.
Exactly. Because I mean, we've been trying the superstar thing, having 1, 2, 3 superstars and building the team around them. We have no Champions League. I mean, we were close, but not close enough. So now, I mean, we might as well try something new here. This win, when you saw the performance and after the game with the victory, did you have any feel of, did this change your mind and perspective about PSG? Were you like, was I underrating this team? Was I underestimating my own club? Or were you like, yeah, I expect this. This is what a good PSG should do.
I'll say that, like, I'll probably more so in the camp of like underestimating a bit, because obviously, yeah, we weren't coming off the greatest of, off the greatest back before. But like, even if you look at it, it's like, again, I think it's also about being in the circle you are. PSG, like, there's obviously the Champions League, obviously massive, but there's also the league. Like after that Newcastle, I think we played Rennes. Who else did we play? Played Rennes, Strasbourg, and then obviously this Newcastle game. And then it was both Rennes games. I think the Rennes was 3-1, 4-1, something like that. Strasbourg was 3-0. So it's not like PSG are getting back into form, obviously. And as I said again, that Newcastle game, I think perhaps people were seeing it. It was worse than it actually was. Not to say that it was like good or anything, But again, I'll also say this: I'd rather PSG, because PSG usually, very often, do pretty decently, you know, in the group stages. Pretty, if you want to say, for lack of a better term, cruise through the group stages. And at some points, like last year, for example, cost us. Like at the last point, the reason why we finished second, and as a consequence faced Bayern Munich, was because we lost on goals scored. And that all only comes down to the Benfica game, and that's because sort of we were cruising through the group stages. So I'd much rather us, and if not only that, but if you look at, for example, the seasons where we've probably done the best in the Champions League. I remember that the 2 seasons the prior with the 2 seasons with Messi, we obviously got knocked out in the round of 16, but the 2 seasons before that, the first season for 2020 is when we made it to the final in the final 8, and the season before that is when we got knocked out in the semifinals to Man City. And those ties, I remember. So the Man City that year, we had Manchester United in our group. That was tough. I remember we lost our first game in Paris to Manchester United, and we had to go to Old Trafford to get a result. And in the end, we topped the group. And the season before that, I remember we had Real Madrid in our group. That first game, we beat Real Madrid, I think 3-1 or 3-0.
3-0.
3-0 at the Parc des Princes, and then we went and got a draw, like a last minute draw against them at the Bernabeu. So like when PSG have had difficult group stages, they've usually gone on and done well afterwards. And so I think that's because you can't really coast through, and you have to like sort of fight through and continue it perpetually, effectively, because that's a criticism of PSG, is that because maybe, you know, even if a PSG at 70% in the league still wins the league, maybe even at 65% still wins the league. And so then going from that 65 to now having to face a Bayern, a Real, a Barca in the round of 16 quarterfinal of the Champions League, making that difference immediately is perhaps a lot more difficult. And so I think the fact that even now that PSG have won this game on 6 points, qualification is not secured. Still have to go to Milan, get a good result, go do the business, get Newcastle at home, and then go away to Dortmund at the Signal Park and whatnot and get a result there. I think will mean that we will be a lot more prepared for when the round of 16 and the latter halves of the Champions League come around. So I think it's good, and I think it's not to say that, you know, PSG are now, you know, the best team in Europe or whatnot, but also PSG were not nearly as bad as that Newcastle game had to be. I think it's much more in the middle. I think a victory was expected, perhaps not as emphatically as this, but I think a victory overall was, I think, expected from PSG.
100%. Well, I think we've talked well enough about the game. Are you feeling confident now for the next game versus AC Milan away?
Yeah, I think the danger I don't want is for, well, first and foremost, oftentimes what PSG have is after a big European night like this, oftentimes in the league, the next game is a bit like wonky. So it's going to be, and especially PSG right now can't afford to have wonky, you know, league performances. We're not in first, right? We're 2 points behind Monaco, so we still need to, you know, keep winning in the league, and also Champions League qualification is not secured. And not to mention, as you said, this next Milan game is in Milan, and if Milan lose this game, it's like they can't lose this game. Effectively, they have to win it, all right? Otherwise, they're gone. So now that adds another dimensionality of it. So PSG is going to be under pressure. It's going to be a completely different game, I think. Milan's going to be a lot more in your face. They need to score. They need to go to win. They still haven't scored so far. So I'm going to be interested to see how PSG go and cope with the game in Milan. And also more, I guess, urgently, more recently, how they're going to do in their next league game against Brest. So that's going to be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Brest, for some reason, they're sitting 5th in Ligue 1, so they're definitely not a team we should be underestimating. We're going away as well, and as you said, that Champions League hangover.
Exactly, yeah. It's real for PSG, yeah.
We'll see what Lucho does. Does he rotate the team? No, we actually have Brest and then Montpellier, and then Milan. So we got, so 2 weekend games. Yeah, it will be interesting. Well, Junior Nkanabasi, what should I call? Should I call it Junior?
Junior's fine, yeah.
Junior, all right. It was a pleasure having you here, and hopefully you'll be here more times talking about Paris Saint-Germain, the best club in the world.
Of course, yeah, no problem. It's good to have, you know, a fellow PSG supporter amongst us. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, look, us English PSG fans, we got to work together because
100%, man.
Yeah, we're far away from the other big clubs when it comes to English speaking. The French speaking, they have it, but us English speaking, we got to stick together, man.
100% agree. Yeah.
Well, people, if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button. I will be tagging. You have a TikTok, right?
TikTok,
I'll be
Instagram, YouTube,
Instagram. You have YouTube.
Yep.
You have Twitter.
Yep.
All right, I'll be tagging all of that in the comment section. Make sure to follow him there for, mostly opinions, right?
Yeah, mostly on popular football opinions. Talk about PSG. You know, get a lot of heat for what stuff I say. But yeah, football. Talk anything. Yeah, anything football. Really.
Yeah. All right. So make sure to tune into his stuff. And as usual, allez Paris.